Did we make any mistakes? All right. So vertical means they're congruent, or vertical means they're opposite each other. Oops. Right? Vertical means they're opposite each other. Linear pair means they make a straight line together. Adjacent means they're next door neighbors. Complementary means they make a right angle. Like we just said, vertical means they're across from each other. So vertical means they're across from each other, right? If this one's 90 degrees and this one's 90 degrees, then they're supplementary because that means they equal 180. Here, angle 1 and angle 2 are congruent because they're vertical. And because they're bisected over here, we've got 45 degrees plus 45 degrees, which means it's complementary because that makes them 90. So one of the ways I remember that is I've got complementary. And if I put a line there, that's 90 degrees. So complementary is 90 degrees. I have very weird ways of remembering things. You'll find that out. If I have supplementary, I can turn that S into an 8. That's 180. Supplementary is 180 and complementary is 90. Okay. I need you to get out a piece of paper. We're going to go to the more practice slide, and I'll share mine with you. We're going to do 4 practice problems, and then I'm going to put you in breakout rooms to do something called Pear Deck together. Okay. So get out a piece of paper if you don't already have one, and I want you to draw figure 1. And then set up the equation. What kind of angles are those? Can anybody unmute themselves and tell me? What kind of angles are those? Are they vertical? Are they supplementary? Are they congruent? Are they adjacent? Are they complementary? Don't everybody shout out at once.
Complementary?
Complementary means they add up to 90 degrees. Are those going to add up to 90 degrees?
No, then supplementary?
Supplementary is going to add up to 180 degrees. Do they add up?
I got nothing.
No?
Angles mess me up.
So make sure you go back and watch that video if you haven't watched the video, okay? These are vertical angles. They kind of make a V, right? I'm being very sloppy today because I don't have my stylus. But they kind of make a V. That's how I remember they're vertical. So vertical angles make a V. They're going to be congruent because all vertical angles have to be congruent. So when we have algebra statements in here, we're just going to set them equal to each other. 110 equals 2x plus 40. Okay, and then we're going to solve it. 110 equals 2x plus 40, so we're going to subtract 40 from both sides. And we get 2x equals 70, and x equals 35. Okay, vertical is congruent. So if you don't write anything else, write vertical is congruent, right? And then you'll have this shape. You'll know that these are vertical angles because you've got a top and a bottom. Okay. Here, what do we have? What's the relationship with those angles? Adjacent means they share a side. They're right next to each other. Are those right next to each other, or do they kind of make a V? They're vertical. They kind of make a V. If you kind of tilt your head and squint your eyes a little bit. So if I've got vertical angles, what do I know about vertical angles? They are, somebody say congruent. Congruent, thank you. So when we set up our equation, x equals 5x minus 48, we're going to solve that. I typically don't like subtracting the bigger number, but we're going to do it today. Oops, I already had the answer in my head. That's why I wrote that. Negative 4x equals negative 48. And then we divide by negative 4. And x equals 12. Okay, vertical angles are congruent, and vertical angles are made when two lines intersect and you have angles on the opposite sides. Okay, so if two lines intersect like these, and I've got an intersection on the left and an intersection on the right, those are vertical angles. So they're congruent. So we're going to set those two things equal to each other again, right? So 64 equals 48 plus x. We subtract the 48 and subtract the 48. So x equals, is that 24? Boom. I'm going to pause for a minute and let you guys catch up. Somewhere on your paper, vertical angles are always congruent, and make sure you draw a picture of your vertical angles. So now let's go on to question 4. Here we've got our intersecting lines. Do we have vertical angles here, or do we have something else? It's not vertical, right? Because there's no information down here in the lower right-hand side. So what we've got is an acute angle and an obtuse angle. This is acute, it's smaller than 90 degrees. And this is obtuse, it's bigger than 90 degrees. And together they make a perfectly straight line, right? So what are those two things going to add up to? 180. So our equation here is 75 plus 2x minus 5 equals 180. If those two angles make a straight line, if you can take a sticky note, right, and put it up to your screen, and it makes a perfectly straight line, those angles, whether it's two or more of them, are going to add up to 180 degrees. So when we solve this, has anybody solved it yet? You get 2x, oops, I'm still in eraser mode, 2x plus 70 equals 180, so 2x equals 110, and x equals 55. You want to take a crack at them yourself? I'm going to stop sharing.